In today's video, I'll be discussing some of the advantages and disadvantages of renting versus buying a home, and some of the things that you need to consider if you are looking into buying your first home or are you thinking about renting. Then at the end of the video, I'll break down to you the thought process that I went through to decide whether to buy or whether to rent. So stay tuned. Hey, what's up guys? My name is Nhlakanipho and welcome to my financial education channel. So as discussed before, I'll be going through why should you rent or why should you buy a property, and just a short process in which you should consider if you are thinking about buying your first home, right? So renting, for starters, I think is something that most people do. Most people, especially in my age bracket, are renting a home. And if you are thinking of renting a home, some of the advantages that you'll experience and enjoy is the fact that you can move around as and when you please, regardless of where you work. If your work changes location, if you get a job in another province, the flexibility of being able to move from point A to point B is really it really is a benefit that is not matched by any other. Personally, I've been in Joburg for about 7 years, if I'm not mistaken, and I've moved like 7 times. Whenever I'm not happy with a place, I decide to move. And someone might see that as instability, but I see it as me choosing to be happy. And if I'm no longer happy, I move on. And that's the benefit that comes with renting, is that you can just decide to move as and when you please. Obviously, there are terms to your lease agreement. However, if you have signed a 1-year lease, after 1 year, you can leave. You can find a new place. And if you do decide to change provinces, your workplace, if they decide to change provinces or you get a job in a different province, you can easily up and leave, as compared to if you do own a home. It is not so easy to just say, I'm going to sell my house or I'm going to rent it out, because the process of buying a home and the process of buying an investment property is not the same. You might find that even though you have a house, and renting it out is not as easy as you might have thought it's going to be, maybe because of the location, maybe because of the price in which you'd have to rent it out for. It wouldn't make financial sense. So if you do own a home like in some fancy area, it's not going to really be easy to find someone who's willing to rent for 20,000-30,000 rands a month. And if you own a more modest house, then maybe it might be easier. But the process, as I mentioned before, to buy an investment and the process to buy a home is not the same. I believe that you should clearly distinguish the two, and you should separate the two, because when you are buying an investment, you must use logic and facts. And when you're buying a home, it's more of an emotional feeling to say, I like that, I like this. However, if you are buying an investment, it's not about what you like, it's all about the numbers. That's just my opinion, right? So another advantage of renting is the fact that you don't have to deal with all maintenance, potential maintenance and repairs that happen. If there's a leak in the roof, if there's a geyser burst, those are not expenses that the tenant has to deal with. The landlord has to deal with those. So this does not change your rent amount. Your rent will still remain. If it's, let's say, 7,000 rands, your rent will be 7,000 rands, irregardless of whether there's a burst pipe somewhere. So that will be the landlord's responsibility. Another thing, when you are renting, you are not exposed to interest rate fluctuations. As we all know, interest rates in South Africa are at an all-time low, and if you are a landlord, you are enjoying the benefits of that. But if the roles were reversed and interest rates go to an all-time high, then that's a really negative thing and a bad thing for the landlord. However, as a tenant, your rent is going to remain 7,000 rands, irregardless of what happens to interest rates. Maybe it might be factored into your lease agreement if you want to renew your lease agreement. However, if interest rates right now shot up to, let's say, 14%, which is obviously not something that is going to happen like right now, but assuming something like that does happen, your rent, if it's 7,000 rands and you've signed a 1-year lease agreement, your landlord can't come back to you and say, hey, interest rates have gone up, therefore you need to pay an additional amount of X. So definitely that's something that you do enjoy as a renter. Another thing, when you are renting, you don't have to have a large capital outlay, which is paying large amounts upfront so that you can move in. All you need to do is pay usually your deposit, maybe a key deposit and an electricity, water deposits, maybe, right? So those are the only costs that you have. However, if you are buying a home, there are large amounts that you have to put upfront. Those are transfer fees, those are your transfer duty, those are bond registration fees. All those kind of fees are things, are monies that are really in the thousands that you have to put up front, and you can't avoid it if you are looking to be a homeowner. So if you are renting, you do have the benefit of not having to pay for those costs. Another thing, if you are renting, most of the time your rental payments of, let's say again, 7,000 rands will include water, however not electricity. Sometimes, depending on your landlord, depending on where you stay, it is inclusive of water, so you can run the water bill as much as you want. You will not really get charged additionally. It is included in the rental fee. So I'm not promoting people to go out there and run high water fees, high water charges, because then obviously that's gonna now affect the landlord negatively, and it's just a waste of water when you don't need to waste water. It is unnecessary. So I'm not really recommending that. However, I am saying whenever there are months where maybe there's a large that where there would be a large water fee, it wouldn't really affect you much as a tenant, depending on where you stay, obviously. Another thing with renting that you'll usually see with these new developments, like I remember I saw a new development that's in Randburg where they say that you get your first 3 months rent free, right? So where would you ever see a place where you actually get to live for free for the first 3 months? Like, you'll never really get that with home ownership. You'll be paying that bond payment from day one, right? So these are just some of the benefits of renting, but obviously with the good comes the bad. And some of the bad things that might happen is that you might have a shitty landlord, like some landlords don't take care of their apartments or houses. Like, they don't do the necessary repairs and maintenance. And even if they do, sometimes it does happen that they do it after a long period of time of you complaining over and over again, which does become a significant inconvenience. If I can remember clearly from one of my experiences, a carpet, like the carpet was really, really filthy. And when I did view the apartment before I moved in, I spoke to the agent and said, listen, this carpet is really filthy. I need it to be cleaned at least by the time that I do move in. And the agent was like, yeah, sure, we'll speak to the landlord. Landlord will be more than happy to clean the carpet for you. And then what happened? On the day that I was actually supposed to move in, that is the day they decided to clean the carpet. And so not only am I now not able to move in, but I'm not able to move in because I have to wait for the carpet to be cleaned. And then after it's cleaned, I now actually find out that the carpet is not properly cleaned because it needed a deep clean. It was really filthy. Like, even if you put your hand on it, it came out like with white. Like, I'm not sure what that white was, whether it was maybe repairs that they were doing somewhere in the apartment, and it was just really, really dirty. And I had to stay over a month with the carpet dirty. So that really did get me sick. And if I'm really being honest right now, I'm just thinking about how it took so long for the landlord to clean the carpet. It took them over a month to come in and get someone. I had to get quotes from different places so the carpet can get cleaned, and then they'd say, no, it's too expensive. Then I'm like, damn, dude, do it yourself. It's your apartment, But then I did go out of my way to try get the cheapest one available, and the landlord just complained about every single invoice I submitted to him. So eventually he got someone to do it, and surprise, surprise, it was the exact same amount, well, within the same region in which the invoices I was receiving was. But these are some of the disadvantages of renting, And another thing, when you are renting, you do generally move around a lot. If you're like me, moving around so many times, there are a lot of moving costs that you have to pay every single year, and there's potential damage to your furniture, TV, fridge, whatever it is that you are moving around. It could potentially get damaged. But I think what I do like about moving as well is that you end up finding certain things that you couldn't find before. You're like, oh damn, nas lesa skipa lesana that I've been looking for forever. Like you find things that you're like, oh, I used to have is this, I can't find it, oh there it is. You know, you think things are stolen or lost, Kanti, they're actually somewhere lying around in your apartments, and when you are moving, you do generally find those things. So yeah, man, but the moving costs and the potential damage to the things that you own is there, and it's not really something you can prevent, you know. Another disadvantage, I guess, with renting is that you actually will never build any equity and own any home or property. But I guess this does depend on your strategy. Like for me personally, I don't think it's going to be the case, but most people who are renting end up not having to own, not having owned something, or they start their bond payments and ownership process at a much later stage in life. And it does really slow you down in terms of now you're buying your first house, let's say at the age of 40, because most people, the biggest investment that they will make is purchasing a home. And if you're purchasing your home for the first time at 35, 40 years old with a 20-year bond, that clearly shows that you're going to only own it at the age of 55, 60. So that is a disadvantage, is that some people look at it as paying off someone else's bond. And that is true, you are paying off someone else's bond when you are renting. However, it does depend on everyone's circumstance and the stage in life that they are in, right? Because I believe that if you are much younger in life, there's no need for me personally to own a house. Like I don't want to own a house. I want to live in a nice apartment, have a nice lifestyle center, and just chill in Pilimpil, you know. And some people might feel like, no, that's a waste of money. They wanna buy their own home. They wanna own their home after 10, 15, 20 years, whatever their period is. So it really does depend on the stage in life in which you are in. Do you have children? That's another consideration that you need to make. Do you like having large parties and all of that? Because if you are renting, the landlord will not want you to have parties, but if it is your house, you can do whatever the hell you want to do, right? So these are things that you need to consider when you are looking at whether you want to rent or whether you want to buy a house. So look at where you are in life. What are you trying to achieve? What stage in life are you in terms of age, and in terms of children, in terms of those kind of things, you know? So have a deep look at that and then make a decision for yourself as to which is better. Because when you are buying a house, I think a process that you should follow is that you should save up money, definitely. So when you start viewing apartments or viewing houses looking to buy, you should save. You should definitely save, because there are those large upfront costs that you need to be ready for. And don't only look at in terms of the bond repayments, but also look at the costs in terms of home ownership, as is the bond payments, it's the levies if it is an apartment or some sort of gated community, it is the levies, it's also the rates and taxes that go to the municipality, and then obviously, as mentioned before, the large capital outlay at the beginning of your home ownership. So look at all of that and save for all those costs, because you don't want to take out a bond, 100% bond for a house, and then at the same time using your credit card so that you can pay for the transfer fees, bond registration fees, and that's not a good way to start your home ownership journey. I think you should definitely be prepared financially. And one last thing about actually the large capital outlay, something that some people have a bit confused about. The Minister of Finance at the beginning of the year mentioned that people thought that he was saying that there's no more transfer fees, and this is not true, guys. What the minister was saying was that there's an increase in the threshold in which you will be paying transfer duty. So the threshold before was properties below 900,000 rands don't pay transfer duty, and everything after 900,000 rands you pay transfer duty on. And it's also dependent on the amount of the property, right? The value of the property. And then now all that has happened is that threshold has been increased from 900,000 to 1 million. So you don't pay any transfer duty on properties that are less than 1 million. And if it is more than 1 million, then you pay transfer duty, not transfer fees. The transfer fees are separate. These are lawyer fees that you're paying to the lawyers, and transfer duty is going to SARS, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it's going to SARS, and the transfer fees are going to the lawyers who are doing all the paperwork for you so that you can actually own the home. So don't expect there to not be any of these costs. And then things like bond registration fees aren't going to be there, obviously, if you are purchasing the property that you are buying cash and you're not using a bond, then you won't have any of those fees. And then I also know that if you are purchasing a new development, some of these fees are eliminated as well. So just have a look at that. It depends clearly on what type of investment that you're trying to make, or homeowner that you want to be, whether you want to live in these new developments where there's a community of people within a certain area, or do you want to buy a house and have a community of people basically that are neighbors. So you can't control who your neighbors are when you do own a home. However, when you are renting, you can chop and change as you please, as I've mentioned in this video. So guys, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please subscribe to the channel, as I'm about to tell you guys my process and my thinking as to why I rent, right? So I'm looking at the fact that I'm a very young man at this stage, and there's no need for me to own a house that I'm gonna live in. There's no need for me to, I don't want to, you know, there's no desire in me to own where I live. However, I do own a property investment. So what I've decided to do is, instead of buying a house and living in it, I'd rather buy a house, buy an investment property, to be specifically clear, buy an investment property, get someone to live in it and pay off all the fees that are associated with owning that, and then I can go live in some apartments that I'll really enjoy. You know, that to me makes more sense, because I don't want to buy this apartment that I live in. I have no intention of living here forever. I'm probably gonna move after 12 months anyway. So judging on that, based on that, I'm not gonna buy this place and then after a year I'm unhappy with it and then shift and move somewhere else. Now what I'm gonna do with this apartment, I have to rent it out, and if I'm renting it out, will the rent cover all the expenses? I didn't think about that before when I was buying it, because I bought it as a home. However, if I buy an investment property, you are considering all those things. Will the rent cover all the expenses and the likes, right? So I prefer to rent where I live and then buy property elsewhere that I will be renting to other people so that they can live in it. I don't mind paying off someone's bond, because I'm happy to live here, and the cost of me actually living here is cheaper than if I were to actually own it and have to pay the levies and have to pay the rates and taxes, have to pay the bond. Those costs combined are more than the rent that I'm paying right now. So it makes more sense for me to just rent here. I enjoy it, I like it, and the day I don't like it, best believe, if you know me, I'm out, I'm gone. I don't like staying, I don't like being uncomfortable, staying in a place that I'm not happy with. So those are some of the benefits and disadvantages of both sides. You can make a decision for yourself at the end of the day as to what you prefer to do, and there's no right and wrong answer, guys. I believe that everyone's decision is based on how they feel, and if you feel like you're not ready, then you're not ready, you know. But if you feel like you are ready, then definitely go for it. I really do recommend that everyone own property at some point in their life and try build some sort of property portfolio, because maybe I am a bit biased towards property because it is my first love. So I think I will always be biased towards it. The day I decide to start a family and have a family, I probably will buy a house somewhere and then have to stay there for like 10 years or something. It doesn't really sound exciting to me. It doesn't excite me to own a home. Uti, I have a title deed that's in my name and I live there. It doesn't do it for me, hey? I'd rather own a place somewhere else, even if I have a loan attached to it, I don't care. Someone else is paying off that loan. So the idea that I own a property and someone else is paying for it, like that's what excites me, you know. And then there are many benefits that there are to home ownership and property ownership, and I have made a video on some of the benefits on owning property, so you're more than welcome to check it out on my YouTube channel. And yeah, guys, that's me for the day. Please subscribe to the channel. Hit me up in the comments below as to whether you rent or do you own a property, and why. What is your process and what is your line of thinking when you decided to rent or when you decided to buy a home and live in it, right? As I said before, there's no right and wrong. This is my opinion. This is what I've decided to do, and just share with the comments below what you have decided to do. So that's it from me. Subscribe, like the video, and I'll see you next time.